Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So we were talking about the foundational values of civil services in the last class. We've discussed about sympathy, empathy, and compassion. Let's continue to talk about objectivity. We have already discussed that objectivity is the quality, is the ability of an individual to be able to take decisions not on the basis of preconceived notions, not on the basis of prejudices, not on the basis of the biases, but rather as per a careful analysis of the various considerations. The idea behind objectivity is to reduce the errors which are there in the decision making in policies, so that we can reduce the wastage, we can ensure that the policy making is more accurate in nature. It also ensures that people can overcome their prejudices and biases and can keep public interest at the highest priority when taking decisions. So this is as far as the importance of the objectivity and the idea of objectivity is concerned, and we will be discussing. So I don't know. In the last class, have we talked about the importance of objectivity? Have we written it down? No. Right. So let's discuss that. Now, first, you please write down importance of objectivity. Importance of objectivity, and this we are talking about importance of objectivity, of course, in context of the civil services. Importance of objectivity. So one thing that you must keep in mind is that civil servants often take decisions without the benefit of the hindsight, and which means that the policy making is an exercise that is often carried out in dark, without really knowing what the consequences of the policy are going to be, what the outcomes of the policy are going to be. In case the decisions are not taken in an objective manner, and if they go wrong, then in that situation, the accountability for those decisions is going to lie on the shoulders of the civil servant who has taken that decision. And that is why objectivity becomes such a crucial value. It becomes an important part of any decision that is taken by a civil servant, as we had discussed in the last class, so that later on, if the decision goes wrong, the outcomes are not as expected, the civil servant can clearly steer away of taking the entire blame of the failure of that particular policy, right? So the first point that you can write down is civil servants often take decisions without the benefit of hindsight. Civil servants often take decisions without the benefit of the hindsight, and objectivity can help in ensuring that decision making is more accurate in nature. That decision making is more accurate in nature. Not only that, they can justify their decisions at a later stage. They can justify their decisions at a later stage. They can justify their decision at a later stage if the decision was made as per a careful analysis. If the decision was made as per a careful analysis. The additional point to this is that the accountability of the civil servants can also be enforced in a more effective manner if the decision making is more objective, because then it will be easier to enforce transparency as well. See, if you are taking decisions in an objective manner, then you would not have any inhibitions in placing on record in front of the citizens, in front of the people, the reasons because of which you have ended up taking that decision. So you please write down that also. Enforcing the accountability of the civil servants also becomes easier Enforcing the accountability of the civil servants also becomes easier if decision making is objective in nature. Enforcing the accountability of the civil servants also becomes easier if decision making is objective in nature. See, one thing which we must also understand is that it gives a sense of fairness to the citizens as well. A citizen also feels more assured of the decision making process within the government, where he feels that the government functionaries are not biased or they are not driven by what they like or dislike. So please write down that also. It provides a sense of fairness to the citizens. It provides a sense of fairness to the citizens and can play an important role in establishing the trust and can play an important role in establishing the trust between the citizens and the government. So it can play a very crucial role on the front of establishing the trust that has been lost between the citizen and the government, because the citizen would be having that sense of fairness that decisions have been taken on the basis of objective criteria. Then the next is recruitment in the government is often adversely affected. Recruitment in the government is often marred by nepotism and favoritism. Taking an objective approach in such matters would promote merit and fairness in the system. And lastly, it limits the use of discretionary powers. Therefore resulting in corruption. So when discretionary power vested in a civil servant is used for private interest, it results in corruption. The result is corruption as a result of using discretionary powers in private interest. When do you use discretionary powers in private interest? When there is lack of objectivity in decision making. Whenever objectivity comes in, then in that case the discretionary powers, so if objectivity is exercised in the exercise of discretionary powers by a civil servant, it results in promoting public interest. Lack of objectivity, on the other hand, results in corruption, right? It results in the breach of public trust. So this is as far as the importance of objectivity as a value is concerned. Now, how do we inculcate objectivity as a value in the civil servants? What are the ways through which objectivity can be imparted? So please write down inculcating objectivity in the civil services. Inculcating objectivity in the civil services. So what are the ways in which we can inculcate objectivity in civil services? If you were to become a civil servant and to be heading a department, how would you ensure that people, those who were reporting to you, would be objective in their decision making? Yes? Certain procedures to be followed. So one could be that you would lay down standard operating procedures, guidelines, which should be followed by the members of that particular department, by the people, those who are working in that department. So you can write down that as the first point. Drawing and elaborate standard operating procedures and guidelines. Drawing and elaborate standard operating procedures and guidelines to be followed by the members within a department, Yes, what else? ठीक है, वो तो मतलब है ना, बट ऑब्जेक्टिविटी की बात हो रही है ना, वो तो फिर हम हर चीज में बोल देंगे. हाँ, क्रिएटिंग साइंटिफिक टेम्पर. और थोड़ा प्रिसाइज बताओ. यस, थोड़ा और प्रिसाइज. यस, how tell me how you would do it exactly. Can we say that use of data analytic tools within the government for decision making, right? Use data as an enabler for taking decisions within the government. You could talk about improving the quality of the data that is available within the government to take the decisions. So we must conduct surveys, we must collect feedback from the citizens on a time to time basis, so as to understand how the schemes and programs are being implemented. We must rely upon the statistical evidence studies performed by various organizations in order to assess the evaluation and the impact of the various government programs and schemes. So be precise. You can always mention checks and balances, you can always mention those things, but that will not give you marks. Please understand that, because everyone can write that. You have to be precise about what you are writing. हाँ, कुछ topics में हो सकता है कि हम generic suggestion दे दें, एक दो generic suggestion दे दें, वो बात है. But everything, if you will write very generic, then it will not fetch you marks. Please understand that. So please write down improving the quality of data available within the government. Improving the quality of data available within the government through surveys and statistical exercise. Through surveys and statistical exercise. Third, using data analytic tools. Using data analytic tools to make decisions within the government. Next, as I said, seeking feedback. Seeking feedback from the citizens. Seeking feedback from the citizens on service delivery mechanisms. So, for example, in Bangalore, the municipal corporation introduced a citizen report card program. This citizen report card program was to seek the inputs of the citizens on performance of various municipal bodies, various municipal agencies. So to seek the inputs of the citizens on the performance of various municipal agencies. देखिए, म्यूनिसिपल बॉडीज ने भी कोई हो सकता है एजेंसी हायर करी हो सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करने के लिए, उन सब की परफॉर्मेंस को रेट किया जाएगा ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ दिस सिटीजन रिपोर्ट कार्ड, एंड दैट विल देन create a loop where you would provide feedback and inputs to improve the functioning of that particular agency, or those who are not performing up to the mark, they may be even blacklisted. So try to find examples like this of how the governments have incorporated the principles of seeking feedback from the citizens on various services provided. Next, please write down. Social audit can be a powerful mechanism for inculcating objectivity in the civil services. Can be a powerful mechanism for inculcating objectivity in the civil services. I hope you know what is social audit. It's an audit that is performed by people, by the society. So that can also act as a very important tool to enforce the objectivity in the civil services, because the civil servant knows that I can always be asked questions from the public about the schemes and policies that I have implemented, and therefore I need to be precise and objective with the decisions that I am taking so that I can justify them at a later stage. Next, please write down. अच्छा, इसके अंदर सोशल ऑडिट में आप ये मेंशन कर सकते हैं जैसे कि एमजी नरेगा में हमने सोशल ऑडिट को इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज कर दिया है. वी हैव मेड सोशल ऑडिट an inseparable part of MG Narega. What we call it as institutionalization of social audit. We have institutionalized the idea of social audit. So we need to have the same kind of approach for the other schemes and programs of the government as well. Then we may evolve a comprehensive code of conduct. We may evolve a comprehensive code of conduct to be followed diligently. A comprehensive code of conduct to be followed diligently by the civil servants. A comprehensive code of conduct to be followed diligently by the civil servants. So we will discuss what is a code of conduct, but it is broadly speaking a set of do's and don'ts for a person of a particular organization. So we have defined certain do's and don'ts to be performed by the civil servants as a part. We should do that as a part of code of conduct. And lastly, one of the online students has also mentioned that what we should do is that we should try to quantify the goals and the objectives that are assigned to the organization or the department or a particular civil servant. That would also ensure objectivity. That is, you'd be able to assess their performance as to whether they are doing well or not. One of the ways in which the private sector has incorporated this approach is what we know as the KPI or the KRA approach, the key performance indicators and the key result areas. Right? So in key performance indicators and key result areas, basically what is done is that key performance indicators will be that, let's say for example, you need to, अगर आप किसी एक particular district के district education officer हैं, तो आपका गोल है कि उस district में enrollment ratio या enrollment rate जो है उसको आपको 95% and above करना है. ये की परफॉर्मेंस इंडिकेटर है जिसके बेसिस पे असेस किया जाएगा कि हैव यू अचीव दैट पर्टिकुलर indicator or not? Have you been able to achieve that standard or not? That will be a good parameter of judging the success of the work that has been done by you, the efforts that have been put by you, whether they are actually achieving some outcome or not. But we must not only be fixated about numbers all the times. We must also break down 95% अगर हमें एनरोलमेंट रेट चाहिए, उसके लिए हमें कुछ और चीजें भी अचीव करनी पड़ेंगी. सी फॉर एग्जाम्पल, the goal could be to qualify the civil services examination. That is the key performance indicator, what rank you will get. But key result area would be the stepping stones to achieve that final result, which will be, what will be that? Have I attempted all the previous year questions of mains? That is one key result area. Have I attempted all the previous year questions of prelims? Another key result area. Have I gone through topper answer copies of at least 5 toppers? Another key result area. Have I written at least 8 tests before going into the examination hall? Another key result area. Another key result area which you can assign is, have I finished the coverage of all the basic textbooks that I needed to cover? Another key result area. Have I revised everything which has been taught in the class? Another key result area. See, if you achieve the key result areas, then you would automatically achieve your key performance indicator. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So, key result areas, one can say, are smaller goals, are short-term goals. And key performance indicator is, in a way, the ultimate objective that you are trying to achieve with achieving those particular key result areas. So key result area, say for example for a district education officer, तो ये तो KPI हो गया है ना, this is KPI for an officer. But what will be the key result area for an officer? Key result area will be, say for example, that in case of a district education officer, to achieve enrollment ratio, that infrastructure in schools, has it been improved or not? For example, have you established girls toilet in every school or not? ये की रिजल्ट एरिया है ना. अगर आपने ये कर दिया तो एनरोलमेंट रेशियो अपने आप ऊपर चला जाएगा. Many girls do not attend schools because of that reason. Or secondly, am I providing safety in school premises? This will also make my work and my decision making more objective in nature. Similarly, it could be something like, have I conducted awareness program among parents in the district? तो आप एक चेकलिस्ट बनाएंगे बेसिकली कि ये चीजें होनी चाहिए. अगर ये हो जाएंगी तो अल्टीमेटली you will achieve your final goal as well. Right? When you are preparing for the exam, you also need to have this KPI and KRA. More importantly, KRA. There is this a book which has been written by a person called as John Doerr. So in that book, he talks about what he calls as the OKR approach, which is nothing but a fancy version for KPI KRA approach, in which you have objectives, वो वही फाइनल ऑब्जेक्टिव्स होंगे, और की रिजल्ट्स जो कि अगेन आपके स्टेपिंग स्टोन होंगे. So this OKR approach is adopted by various organizations, whether it is Google, whether it is Intel. You look at some of the biggest tech organizations in the world that have done extremely well. They have all adopted this OKR approach. For that matter, they are so transparent about adopting this OKR approach. And see, these are the points that you can write, that if Google is doing so, then we can also incorporate. Na? It's ultimately, we say, business of the government. Business. Governance is also business in a way. So we should have a business approach towards governance. How can we have a business approach towards governance? Right? For business approach towards governance, we need to ensure that we adopt the principles of business in our functioning. है ना, तो वो important है. अब वो business approach आप Google से क्या सीख सकते हैं? We can learn from Google that every year, at the beginning of the year, Everyone in the organization is supposed to make their own OKR. And then you have to discuss it with your supervisor and your peers, and then you have to finalize it. Then every year, at the end of the annual year, every person has to tell how well they have performed on their OKR, which they had drawn themselves. किसी और ने तो नहीं बोला आपको कि ये तुम्हारे OKR में होना चाहिए. You have drawn it yourself. You have to show it to the rest of the team members, to your supervisor, to everyone, that how well I have done. And they lead by example. The CEO begins first. Sundar Pichai would be the first one in the annual meeting of the organization to tell the rest of the organization that this is what the OKR for me was and how well I have succeeded on that parameter or not, so that it is for everyone to see. It will be inspiring for everyone else as well. वो कह रहा है कि मैं पहले चालू करूंगा ना, मैं दूसरों को बोलता रहूं तुम करो, but I don't do it myself. So this is something that we can learn in the government organizations, leading by example. You set your own objectives and key results, show it to the rest of the organization, then the rest of the organization would also feel inspired and motivated. Right? So you can write down adopting the KPI slash KRA slash OKR approach. Adopting the KPI, KRA, OKR approach, KPI slash KRA slash OKR approach as prevalent in the private sector. As prevalent in the private sector for assessing the performance of the civil servants. For assessing the performance of the civil servants. Right, so this is as far as inculcating objectivity is concerned and the importance of objectivity. But see, we must understand one thing. Being objective at all times, one, is not easy, because ultimately we human beings are driven by our own prejudices and preconceived notions. So we can't say that we are always objective. Possibly nahi hai. There are flaws in our thinking. We will have some things that we will give more priority to. And another issue is that being objective at times without empathy can lead to lot of counterproductive effects as well. For example, a few days back there was a news, and there have been several other news also that keep coming in from time to time like this, and which is that a woman was denied food under the PDS scheme because the biometrics under the Aadhaar were not being detected properly, or because of the linking not being done with the biometrics in the Aadhaar system, and as a result she was denied food, and ultimately this resulted in the death of the girl. So the point which we need to understand is that ultimately civil servants are in the civil services not for only being robots, not for only observing rules and regulations all the time. They are human beings there so that we can ensure that we can understand the emotions and the feelings of the other human beings whom we are serving. Otherwise तो आप वहाँ पे आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस अब कुछ सालों में इतना डेवलप हो जाएगा, आप वहाँ पे रोबोट खड़े कर दीजिए सिविल सर्विसेज की जगह, सिविल सर्वेंट्स की जगह. We need civil servants because a human touch is required, right? So you please write down some of the challenges with objectivity. Some of the challenges with objectivity. So please write down first. Being objective at all the times things simultaneously. Start doing something else. Enroll in a course. Enroll in some master's program. Enroll in something. Start doing some job. Don't just give exam like a fool. 1 attempt, second attempt, third attempt, fourth attempt, you are just gambling. That is what you are doing. जुआ है ये, सच्ची बात मैं बता रहा हूं आपको. देखिए, some people may not say this, but the fact is that only. जो आदमी दूसरी तीसरी चौथी अटेम्प्ट में क्वालिफाई किया उससे बात कीजिए कभी, वो आपको बताएगा दैट लक प्लेज अ बिग फैक्टर in qualifying this exam. It plays a really big role. Just yesterday I met one former student. He had some 300 rank last year. He's already in the railway services, railway management services. अब उसका इस साल जो है मेंस क्वालिफाई नहीं हुआ है. अब इसकी कोई गारंटी थोड़ी ना है. और ये तो नहीं है कि आदमी बदल गया. ऐसे भी मैं कैंडिडेट जानता हूँ, दोज हु क्वालिफाइड गॉट इनटू आईपीएस, नेक्स्ट ईयर दे गेव द एग्जाम, प्रीलिम्स ही क्वालिफाई नहीं हुआ. तो सिर्फ तैयारी से नहीं होता है, इज वॉट यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड. देर आर फैक्टर्स विच आर बियॉन्ड योर कंट्रोल. दिस इज नॉट टू से कि आप तैयारी मत कीजिए, बिल्कुल खूब मन लगा के तैयारी कीजिए एंड होपफुली द रिजल्ट्स विल कम इन योर फेवर. बट इफ दे डोंट, वॉट देन वॉट, देन यू मस्ट हैव समथिंग एल्स टू गो बैक टू. तो ब्रेक खूब है आपके पास, ब्रेक ही ब्रेक है, मजे ही मजे हैं, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. बट डू अंडरस्टैंड कि आप लोग बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट समय इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं अपना इस समय. देखिए, पैसा वगैरह तो जो है वो तो कमा लिया जाएगा, इट्स नॉट अ बिग डील. यू कैन ऑलवेज अर्न मनी, बिलीव मी. यू हैव लॉन्ग लाइफ अहेड, यू विल अर्न मनी. अभी कम कमा रहे होगे, बाद में ज़्यादा कमा लोगे, एक समय के बाद पैसे की वैल्यू खत्म हो जाएगी. आई एम टेलिंग यू, आफ्टर अ पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम मनी हैज़ नो वैल्यू. सर कितनी देर में स्टार्ट हो जाएगा? ऑनलाइन जा रहा है ये सब. मनी यू विल ऑलवेज अर्न. आप वापस पैसा कमा सकते हो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. और एक पॉइंट के बाद देयर इज नो वैल्यू ऑफ मनी. आई एम टेलिंग यू, आदमी को थोड़ा बहुत पैसा चाहिए होता है, उसके बाद तो फिर लालच की तो कोई सीमा नहीं है. आप 2 करोड़ के घर में भी रह सकते हो, 20 करोड़ में भी रह सकते हो, 200 करोड़ में भी रह सकते हो, 2000 करोड़ के घर में भी रह सकते हो, है ना. आप 5 लाख की गाड़ी भी चला सकते हो, 50 लाख की भी चला सकते हो, 5 करोड़ की भी गाड़ी चला सकते हो. काम सैमसंग के फ़ोन से भी चलता है, लावा के फ़ोन से भी चलता है, और आईफोन से भी नहीं चलता. You're getting my point? So that can be earned, but time will not be earned. This time, the phase of life which you are in, when you have this energy, when you have this enthusiasm, this will not come back. Please understand that. So utilize this time very, very wisely. Don't waste this time. Later on, you only will repent. I have seen many candidates, because you must know the statistics. If any of you have ever studied statistics, if any of you have ever studied that subject, then you will know that a lot of things are driven by probability. And the fact is that only 1 out of 1000 will get selected. Your chances of doing well in many other professions is much higher, I can tell you that. It is much higher as compared to getting selected. This is not to discourage you, to say that you will not get selected. But if you don't, then you should know what you will do. And you should not appear like a fool in this exam, attempt after attempt after attempt after attempt. You will not gain anything. Rather, I always suggest कि अगर 1-2 अटेम्प्ट दे दिया आपने, नहीं हो रहा है, इफ़ यू हैव एज ऑन योर हैंड, छोड़ दो अभी, बाद में दे देना. लोगों को फिर अजीब सी बातें करते हैं लोग कि नहीं 30 की उम्र में बनेंगे तो चीफ सेक्रेटरी कैसे बनेंगे. अबे अभी तो पहले ही तुम अपना जीवन सुधारो, चीफ सेक्रेटरी की बात कर रहे हो, है ना. फर्स्ट टेक केयर ऑफ थिंग्स विच आर इन योर हैंड्स, फिर आएगा ना चीफ सेक्रेटरी और प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी और कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरी. अभी से ही बातें कर रहे हैं चीफ सेक्रेटरी की. सो इट डजंट वर्क लाइक दैट. सर कब वो चालू होगा? हो गया. सो यस, प्लीज राइट डाउन. पता नहीं क्या लिखवाया था मैंने, जो भी है. इट इज नॉट डिजायरेबल टू बी ऑब्जेक्टिव. क्या लिखा था? हाँ, बीइंग ऑब्जेक्टिव्स एट ऑल टाइम्स इज नॉट डिजायरेबल. Being objectives at all times is not desirable, especially if it comes at the cost of तो टाइम लगेगा. ब्रेक है सर, ब्रेक. हैव फन. चलिए सर, चला लें, कर लें. हाँ नहीं नहीं मतलब हो गया ना, ऑनलाइन जा रहा है ना, ठीक है ओके। अब क्या लिखवाया था फिर पता नहीं, at the cost of, especially at the cost of empathy and compassion. Full stop. It may lead to situations where the civil servants it may lead to situations where the civil servants may ignore the genuine considerations of the citizens, genuine concerns of the citizens, may ignore the genuine concerns of the citizens. Second, please write down, taking an objective approach can be challenging. Taking an objective approach can be challenging, especially because of the lack of coherent, because the lack of availability of, sorry, because of the lack of availability of especially because of the lack of availability of coherent data in the government. Coherent data in the government. Right, so within the government, it's very difficult to find clean, sanitized, coherent data. When you will get into civil services, you will realize that this is a big problem which plagues the Indian governance system. Anyway, next please write down, human beings by their very nature are partisan. Partisan, not partition. Human beings by their very nature are partisan. Human beings by their very nature are partisan and biased. Therefore, remaining objective at all the times. Therefore, remaining objectives at all the times can be challenging. Remaining objective at all the times can be challenging. So it can be really difficult to remain objective at all the times, because ultimately we human beings are partisan and biased by nature. And lastly, objectivity may not be useful. Objectivity may not be useful in certain situations. Objectivity may not be useful in certain situations, especially while resolving the ethical dilemmas. So at times when there are ethical dilemmas in the functioning of the civil services, then in those cases it's very difficult to take an objective approach. See, there is no scale that is available in the market on the basis of which you can decide that which value should be given more importance. Say for example, that your boss tells you to make an exception for a certain person for recruitment in the government service. उसके लिए आप कोई एक आदमी का उन्होंने बोला कि ये बहुत एक्सेप्शनल आदमी है फॉर द गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट, हमारे डिपार्टमेंट के लिए, बट ही लैक्स दिस पर्टिकुलर क्वालिफिकेशन, सो यू ओवरलुक दिस. But at the same time, you know that there are other candidates with qualifications which are put up in the advertisement, but they may not be as capable possibly as your boss is claiming that that person is, whom he is recommending you for appointment to that position. Now you are in a dilemma whether I should take this decision or whether I should take this decision. and there is no scale that is available in the market on the basis of which you can evaluate exactly which decision that I should end up taking. तो ethical dilemmas में ऐसा बहुत बार होता है as a civil servant that objectivity cannot really help because values come into play and there is no way in which you can weigh the values on some kind of a scale, right? So this is as far as the importance of objectivity for the civil servants is concerned, the inculcation of objectivity in the civil servants is concerned, as well as we talk about the challenges associated with objectivity. Is this clear to everyone? Can we proceed further? Now the next important quality that a civil servant needs to possess, a foundational value, is courage and fearlessness. So let's talk about courage and fearlessness. Being courageous. Courage or fearlessness, both are same things only. So what do we mean by courage? What do we understand by courage? Yes. Okay. To stand against what is wrong. Okay. Is that only the thing? What is courage? Yes. Make a calculated risk. Okay. What else? Hmm? Standing with the right and standing against the wrong. Can I say that courage is essentially having unwavering belief in your principles and your values and not compromising with them even when the situations are adverse, even when the circumstances are piled up against you? Can we say that is courage? Can we say that courage is nothing but being able to do the right thing at all the times, irrespective of whatever the consequences will be? Can we say that? So courage in a way is actually very similar to integrity, which we will discuss later, but it's very similar to integrity in many ways. So courage and fearlessness is being also, it means being able to call spade a spade. गलत को गलत बोलना, सही को सही बोलना, and not being afraid of what the consequences are going to be. That is what courage is. So first write down, then we will discuss some examples. Courage means doing one's duty. Courage means doing one's duty without considering the consequences. Doing one's duty without considering the consequences. It refers to the ability to take decisions and actions. It refers to the ability to take decisions and actions. Please एक बार बोल दो उनको ये क्या है. It refers to the ability to take actions and decisions and to stick to one's values. And to stick to one's values and principles and to stick to values and principles despite a possibility of unfavorable outcomes. Despite a possibility of unfavorable outcomes. So you can write down, according to Nelson Mandela, you can put it in double quotes, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. See, everyone feels scared while taking tough decisions. There is not even a single person in this world who can say that I don't get scared. If you're not scared, either you are foolish because you know or you think that you're God, that everything that you will do will turn out to be correct, or you are ignorant. है ना, दो ही चीजें हो सकती हैं. It is not possible, or you're God yourself. So the point which we need to keep in mind is that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the ability to overcome the fear. You see, if you have seen the movie, that series of movies made by Christopher Nolan on Batman, in that he has a fear, the Batman, he has a fear of what? Bats. So then he is told that you need to overcome your fear. And how do you overcome your fear? No, you become your fear. You own your fear. You look into your fear with open eyes. See, the only way to be able to overcome your fears is to be able to face your fears. So courage is the ability to be able to overcome your fears, is not the ability of absence of fear. Please understand that. It's a very important thing. Now, please write down further. Courage is the first of the human qualities. Courage is the first of the human qualities because it guarantees adherence. Because it guarantees adherence to other values. Because it guarantees adherence to other values. It helps individuals in taking ethically correct decisions. It helps individuals in taking ethically correct decisions. Ethically correct decisions, however tough, however tough the situation, however tough the situation and the circumstances. However tough the situation and the circumstances. See, if you don't have courage, if you are not fearless, then to take decisions will be very tough. In fact, to be objective will be very tough. To be honest would be very tough. You would be partisan as well because you would always come under pressure of someone, duress of someone. So that is why courage becomes very important quality. Now, what are some of the examples of courage that we should know? You see, so and courage and integrity are very similar kind of values in many ways, because to be a person of integrity, you need courage, you need conviction. So, a former director of Labasna, P.S. Appu, is one example of courage that we can talk about. So, when P.S. Appu was the former director of Labasna, at that point of time, one of the probationers in the academy, the IAS probationers in the academy, there were certain instances that were reported about his demeanor and behavior which were not considered as appropriate for an IAS probationer. Some of these complaints were made. Some show cause notices were issued to him, but no strict action was taken at that point of time. Later on, as you people would know, when you people would go to Labasna, a Himalayan trek is carried out. In that trek, this gentleman, he was possibly related to some senior minister, some senior politician. He was carrying a gun with himself. He was carrying a pistol with himself. And he ended up having some kind of an argument with some other probationers. And he took out a gun. He brandished a gun and showed it on the other probationer. Now, it's a very serious offense. Firstly, this is a criminal offense. Forget about everything else. So, an FIR is fit in this case. And on top of it, ideally this person should be sent home. And that is what the director of the Mussoorie Academy decided. He said that this person, without any kind of reasons given or anything, I am not going to keep this guy in the academy now, I am expelling him. So he was hell-bent on issuing the order of expulsion, but he started facing pressure from higher ups within the government. Right? So he started facing, this is 1980s, he started facing pressure from the higher ups within the government, from the central government ministry and etc. and all of those things. So at that point of time, he said that I am going to resign from this position. If you are not going to take action against this, because this is a serious breach, this is a serious offense which has been committed by him. If we continue to have him here at the academy, what is the kind of example that he is going to set? What is the example that we are going to set for the probationers in future, that you can do anything and you can always get away with it? And they are just beginning at their career in the civil services. Is this the example that we want to set for them in the civil services, that later on when you get into, abhi aaj ye gun nikal raha hai, kal kisi ko maar bhi dega gun se. Today he is just showing it, tomorrow he will shoot it at someone. So P.S. Appu said that please take my resignation. I am not going to continue as the director of the academy if this person is going to continue being a probationer here. And that is what ultimately happened. He ultimately resigned from the position of the director Labasna. Nothing but courage. Being able to call spade a spade. See, that is what courage is. Even in our ancient scriptures, we find, or in our scriptures, we find the mention of courage. Draupadi, when she is being disrobed in the court of Dhritarashtra, at that point of time, when no man is able to speak for her, when no one has the courage to call spade a spade, she reminds all the people sitting in the court there that you must remember that 1/4 of the sin that is being committed by Duryodhan will also go to your account. 1/4 of the sin is also taken up by the person who only observes and does not speak up when something wrong is happening in front of them. So courage is also speaking up when something wrong happens in front of you. When you do not compromise with your values and principles. You are ready to call out the wrong things that are happening within the government or within the department. That is what is courage. Sam Manekshaw, when he is asked by the Prime Minister of the country, the most powerful politician in the country, to prepare the armed forces for launching an attacking bid on East Pakistan in the month of May in 1971, he refuses point blank to the Prime Minister. He says that you don't know, when it rains in Bangladesh, it rains cats and dogs. Firstly, it would not be possible for me to mobilize my forces at such a short span of time, at such a short notice. I would have to mobilize my forces very quickly in order to do that.